You have been laboring under a profound and universal misconception. You believe there is a universe out there, separate from you, that must be petitioned, that can choose to listen or not to listen. This is the root of every prayer that seems to go unanswered, every plea that meets with silence. I am here to tell you that the universe is not a distant power to be begged. It is the very activity of your own awareness. The silence you perceive is not denial. It is a divine stillness waiting to be recognized as your own. If you have come here feeling that cosmic deafness, that ache of separation, then you are ready for a radical reversal of consciousness. You are prepared to stop speaking to the universe and to begin listening for the universe that speaks eternally within you. What you will discover here is not a method to make the infinite hear you, but the sacred practice of dissolving the very sense of you that stands apart, so that only one harmonious, impartially flowing presence remains. This is the great undoing. Engage with this revelation by subscribing to this channel, making it an altar for your awakening. Confirm your commitment below by commenting the number own, symbolizing the single, indivisible truth we now serve together. We begin there. At that fundamental point of departure that colors every human experience, the ingrained, unquestioned belief that you are here and the universe is there. This is the great divide, the silent architect behind every fear, every longing, and every instance of perceived abandonment. You look out at a world of objects and forces, a job market, a body that ages, a relationship that falters, a bank account that fluctuates, and you perceive a cosmos operating under its own rules to which you must adapt, appeal, or surrender. You stand at the edge of a vastness and speak your hopes into it, waiting for an echo that often seems lost in the void. This is the primal error, the misidentification that sets the stage for all perceived conflict. Consider the most ordinary moment of frustration. You have crafted a plan for your life, a detailed blueprint of how things should unfold. You have worked, you have wished, you have, in your heart, prayed for its manifestation. And then an event occurs that shatters that blueprint entirely, an unexpected loss, a sudden closure, a door slammed shut. The immediate, visceral reaction is one of betrayal. Why is this happening to me? Why is the universe not listening to my good intent? The pain is real, but its source is not the event. It is the profound loneliness of believing yourself to be a solitary fragment cast against an indifferent cosmic backdrop. You are arguing with a projection, battling a shadow you yourself have cast. This illusion of separation is the veil. It is the conviction that consciousness is a private event happening inside your skull, and that out there is a mechanical, or at best, a selectively responsive field of matter and energy. But what if this is the ultimate reversal of truth? The revelation we must entertain is not that the universe is alive and personal to your whims, but that what you perceive as the universe is the outward face of your own state of consciousness. The world you see is a mirror, not a monarch. The silence you encounter is not the silence of a void ignoring you, but the silence of your own infinite nature, waiting to be heard behind the clamor of your personal demanding. Think of it not as philosophy, but as practical mechanics. When you look at a tree, do you believe the tree you see is outside of your seeing? The very experience of the tree is an experience within your own awareness. You cannot separate the knower from the known. Extend this gently. The frustration with a colleague, the anxiety over a headline, the joy at a sunset, these are not transactions between you and a separate world. They are movements within the one field of knowing. The universe that seems not to listen is, in truth, your own awareness, configured by belief into a pattern of limitation and separation, reflecting that configuration back to you as experience. You are not a drop of water seeking the ocean. You are the ocean believing itself to be a drop. Your daily life is a perfect scripture illustrating this. You wake with a sense of dread about the day, and the day seems to conspire to fulfill it. Traffic snarls, emails bristle with tension, everything feels uphill. You attribute this to bad luck, a universe aligned against you. But shift the gaze inward. The dread was a climate of consciousness, and the world reflected its weather. Conversely, there are days you rise with an unaccountable, quiet peace. Not a demand for happiness, but a simple, still peace. On those days, even the rain seems right, and delays feel like grace. The external events may not differ dramatically, but their meaning, their texture, their very reality to you is transformed. What changed? Not a capricious universe deciding to smile upon you. The climate of your awareness shifted, and the mirror showed a different world. Therefore, the anguish of the universe not listening is the anguish of the self talking to itself through the distorting lens of duality. It is a dream of isolation. The healing comes not when the world changes to suit the dreamer, but when the dreamer awakens to the fact that he is the dreamer and the dream is his own projection. The power is not in getting a separate force to heed you, but in collapsing the sense of separation that makes you feel powerless. The infinite is not withholding its response, it is perpetually being itself, which is your own being, behind the mask of personhood. To see the world as separate is to sleepwalk. To recognize the world as the outpicturing of consciousness is to begin to awaken. And in that awakening, the very question of being heard dissolves. For the listener and the speaker are understood to be one. This recognition changes everything, especially the very nature and direction of what you have called prayer. For if the universe is not a separate entity, then all petitionary prayer, the pleading, the bargaining, the listing of requests sent out into the apparent void, becomes a kind of beautiful, heartbreaking superstition. It is you speaking earnestly to your own shadow, asking it for light. The frustration you feel when those prayers seem to go unanswered is not divine neglect. It is the inevitable fatigue of a conversation with an echo. True prayer, then, is not an act of speaking at all. It is the supreme act of listening. Consider the common impulse. You are faced with a crisis, perhaps a financial shortfall or a health concern. The traditional, ingrained approach is to form a thought, a desperate or hopeful message. Please, let this bill be covered. Please, let this scan be clear. You launch the thought like an arrow into the unknown and wait to see if it hits a target. This is prayer as transaction, and it reinforces the very sense of separation that is the cause of your suffering. You have confirmed yourself as the needy one here, and God, or the universe, as the potential provider over there. You have deepened the divide you wish to bridge. Now, shift the posture entirely. Instead of sending out words, become silent. Instead of asking the infinite for things, become receptive to the infinite itself. This is not a passive waiting. It is the most intense activity of consciousness to still the noise of personal want, to quiet the clamor of fear and planning, and to attend. You are not listening for a voice that will whisper an answer in your ear. You are listening for the substance of reality itself to announce its presence as your own being. In that profound, attentive silence, the you that was doing the asking begins to dissolve. What remains is not a person who needs something, but a field of aware presence in which the apparent problem is seen from an entirely new dimension. Take a practical moment from daily life. You have a difficult conversation ahead. The old prayer would be, please let it go well. Let them understand me. Let there be no conflict. This prayer is already rooted in the anticipation of conflict and the image of a separate them opposed to you. Now, practice prayer as listening. Before the meeting, you sit. You consciously release the script you have written in your mind about how it should go. You let go of your defense of your position and your fear of their reaction. You become still. You do not ask for words. You become silent so that the word, the harmonious, intelligent principle of all relation, can be heard. You are not waiting for a magic sentence to drop into your head. You are allowing the consciousness of separation, which is the only source of conflict, to recede. When you then enter the conversation, you may find your words are different, or the other person responds unexpectedly, or the entire context shifts. What has happened? You did not change a separate world. You ceased to assert a separate self, and harmony, which is the natural state of oneness, had room to appear. This listening is the true communion. It is the act of tuning an instrument to the only pitch there is. When you pray by listening, you are not informing God of a situation. You are letting the situation be informed by God. The financial worry, when brought into this silence, may not suddenly vanish with a check in the mail, though that can happen. Something more profound occurs, the terror of lack. The consciousness of scarcity that was coloring your entire world begins to lose its substance. It is seen as a shadow on the wall of your belief. In the light of this attentive silence, the problem may resolve in a conventional way, or you may find a capacity and a wisdom you did not know you had to navigate it. The key is that the center of gravity has shifted. You are no longer a beggar at the door of a cosmic palace. You have In the silence, discovered that you are within the palace itself, and the authority and resources of the kingdom are not doled out to you, but are the very fabric of your own realized being. This is why the deepest answers often come not as dramatic external interventions, but as a profound internal reorganization. The health scare, when placed not before a doctor, out there, but into the listening silence within, may resolve medically, or it may become the occasion for a liberation from the fear of the body itself. In the quiet, you touch something that is not threatened, that does not age, that is whole and complete. From that touch, all action proceeds with a clarity and peace that the frantic prayer of petition could never achieve. You are no longer trying to get life to listen to you. You have become still enough to realize you are life, listening to itself. And in that listening, every moment, every encounter becomes a form of answer, a specific and perfect appearance of the one infinite intelligence knowing itself in you. The external form adjusts, inevitably, to reflect this internal knowing, not because you forced it, but because it is the law of reflection. The mirror cannot show a face of peace when the consciousness before it is at war. To listen is to lay down the arms of the separate self, and in that surrender, the war is over, and what appears is the landscape of peace. Now we approach the very heart of that silence you are learning to enter, the silence you may have called unanswered prayer. This silence is not empty. It is not a void. It is, in truth, the most potent substance in creation. We have misnamed it. We call it absence, when it is the only true presence. We interpret it as neglect, when it is the very essence of nourishing attention. This sacred silence is the substance of your own being when the chatter of the personal self subsides. It is not that your prayers are met with silence. It is that the silence itself is the answer, the very condition in which all true answering takes form. To the person crying out for a sign, for a feeling, for any confirmation that they are not alone, this silence can feel like the ultimate cruelty. I have listened, they say, and I heard nothing. But here is the pivot you were listening for. Something. You were waiting for a voice separate from your own. A dramatic intervention. A burning bush. You were listening with the ears of the person, and so the infinite stillness registered as nothing. But what if you listened not with your ears, but as the silence itself? This is the subtle shift that transfigures the universe. The silence is not a response to your prayer. It is the very ground from which both the prayer and its resolution spring. It is the canvas, not a figure on the canvas. Let this touch your daily experience. You sit to meditate, to pray, to listen. The demands of the day rush in. The unpaid invoice, the strained relationship, the list of chores. You try to push them away, to find a quiet spot. In here, away from the noise out there. You grow frustrated. The silence feels brittle, thin, invaded. This is because you are still fighting from the position of a separate self, trying to carve out a sanctuary within a world you see as hostile. Now, try the opposite. Do not fight the thoughts. Do not seek a silence apart from them. Instead, notice the vast, open, silent awareness in which these thoughts are appearing. The worry about the invoice arises. See it as a cloud passing through the boundless sky of your awareness. The sky does not fight the cloud, it holds it, and it is infinitely more vast and still than the cloud. That sky, like awareness, is the sacred silence. The problem was never the thoughts. It was your identification with them as the totality of who you are, which blinded you to the silent space that hosts them. Or consider a moment of profound grief or shock. The world seems to stop. All your familiar mental structures fail. Words are useless. In that raw gap, there is often a strange, numb peace beneath the pain. That is a touch of the sacred silence. It is not an absence of feeling, but the presence of a consciousness so deep it can hold even the tsunami of emotion without being shattered. We usually rush to fill that gap, to talk, to analyze, to numb, to find a reason, because its vastness frightens the personal self. But if you dare to rest there, to not flee from that silent, shattered openness, you will find it is not a void of meaning, but a womb of rebirth. It is stripping you of the old definitions so a new knowing, not from thought, can emerge. This silence is intelligent. It is not blank. It is the very essence of creative potency. Think of a master musician. The most powerful note is not the one played, but the moment of attentive silence just before it, the gathered potential from which perfect tone is born. Your life is that music. The silence you experience when the world seems to fall away, when plans crumble, when old answers fail, is not a punishment. It is that gathered, creative potential. It is the infinite pausing, not in indifference, but in profound respect for your freedom, waiting for you to cease the frantic mental noise so it can reveal a harmony you could not have composed with your personal mind. It is the space where the new melody of your being can be heard. When you pray for guidance on a decision and no clear sign comes, the temptation is to interpret the silence as abandonment. You may feel forced to decide alone. But what if the guidance is the silence itself? In the quiet, free from the push and pull of fear and desire, a natural inclination emerges. It does not shout. It is a gentle leaning, a clarity that feels like a remembered truth. That leaning is the intelligence of the silence moving as your own consciousness. It is not a voice telling you what to do. It is your entire being becoming an instrument perfectly tuned, so that the right action feels as natural and inevitable as a leaf turning toward the sun. The silence did not give you an answer. It became the answer by revealing you as the living expression of intelligent life, capable of moving from wholeness, not lack. Therefore, never curse the silence again. Do not see it as the universe turning a deaf ear. It is the universe, which is your own infinite self, speaking in its native tongue. It is the language of isness, of pure being. All the events, solutions, and manifestations you seek are like waves on the ocean of that silence. To demand the wave while ignoring the ocean is to ensure perpetual thirst. Rest in the silence. Let it absorb your questions your fears, your timelines, in its fathomless depth. The fragmented self is reunited with its source, and from that wholeness, every appearance in your life must reorganize itself. It is the law. The world you see is a shadow of the substance you are. When you abide as the silent substance, the shadow inevitably changes form. The miracle is not that the silence gives you what you want. It is that, in the silence, you discover you are what you have been seeking, and from that discovery, all things are made new. This brings us to the very core of the activity you witness in the world around you, the movement, the growth, the decline, the so-called causes and effects that seem to govern your days. You see a business thrive and call it a good strategy. You see a healing and credit the medicine. You see a conflict and blame opposing wills. This is the view from the surface, where waves crash against each other. But beneath the surface, there is only one current, one movement, one activity. To believe in a world of separate, competing forces is to remain hypnotized by the appearance. The revelation is this: consciousness is the only activity. There is no universe acting upon consciousness. There is only consciousness appearing as universe. This is not a denial of the tangible, the practical, or the scientific. It is an invitation to perceive the root of all tangibility. The computer you use, the chair you sit upon, the body you animate, these are not inert objects manipulated by a separate you. They are forms that consciousness itself has taken, patterns within the one infinite field of knowing. You do not have a consciousness that observes a world. You are consciousness, and what you observe is your own activity assuming infinite form. The moment this shifts from concept to lived realization, your entire relationship with struggle dissolves. You are no longer a tiny boat battling the sea. You are the water itself, discovering its own capacity for wave and trough. See this in the most ordinary moments. You wake up feeling a weight of inertia, a mental fog. The world that day feels heavy, resistant. Tasks are burdens. People are irritating. The old view says the world is heavy, and thus you feel heavy. But the truth is the reverse. Consciousness is first taking the form of a heavy, contracted belief, and the world mirrors it perfectly. The same traffic, the same workload, the same interactions appear different, because the very lens through which they are perceived, consciousness itself, has configured itself as density. The activity you see out there is the projected picture of the activity in here. But there is only one here. There is no true out there. Consider a moment of sudden inspiration, a flash of insight that solves a problem you've wrestled with for weeks. From the surface, it seems like a random gift, a lucky break in the clouds of your mind. But what actually occurred? The wrestling was the activity of a limited, personal consciousness, the mind working within a closed loop of known data. The moment of release, the flash, is not a new thing entering consciousness. It is consciousness itself, ceasing to identify with the limited loop and recognizing its own boundless nature. The insight was always present, as the ocean is present within the wave. The wave did not receive the ocean. It relaxed its belief in its own separation and knew itself as ocean. The brilliant idea, the perfect solution, is consciousness recognizing itself in a new pattern. It is not created. It is revealed as what has always been true within its own infinite calculus. This understanding transforms how you approach any challenge. You face a financial limitation. The world's activity shouts of markets, prices, and scarce resources. The personal consciousness feels poor, small, and lacking. Its activity is then one of fear, of scrambling, of seeking to get from a world of lack. But when you remember that consciousness is the only activity, you turn not to the world, but to the nature of the consciousness that is beholding a world of lack. You still the frantic mental calculations. You cease to affirm lack by fighting it. You return to the silent knowing of your own infinitude. From that settled awareness, an activity may emerge, a call to make, a new idea to pursue, a quiet recognition of an overlooked resource. This action does not come from the personal self trying to fix a broken world. It flows as the natural, intelligent movement of consciousness itself, rearranging its appearance from a new center of wholeness. The action is effortless, timely, and often surprisingly simple. Your relationships are the clearest canvas for this. You see another person as difficult, hurtful, or cold. The apparent activity is their behavior affecting you. But if consciousness is the only activity, then the other is an appearance within your own field of awareness. The hurt you feel is not caused by them. It is a stirring within your own consciousness, triggered by the mirror they hold up. The moment you withdraw the label of cause from their form and take full responsibility for the activity within your own awareness, everything changes. You may still set a boundary, you may still speak your truth, but you do so from a consciousness of wholeness, not of wounded reaction. You are no longer trying to change a separate person. You are allowing consciousness to reconfigure its appearance from peace, not conflict. And miraculously, the reflection in the mirror often softens, not because you manipulated it, but because the light you are shining upon it has changed. Therefore, see every event, every encounter, every triumph, and every disaster as a specific modality of the one conscious activity taking form. The sun does not cause the sunflower to grow. The same infinite life principle appears as sun and as sunflower in a perfect dance of self-recognition. So it is with you. The universe is not listening or not listening. It is your own consciousness appearing as the circumstance of your life. To change the appearance, you do not shout at the reflection. You turn to the source of the light. You acknowledge, in solemn gratitude, I am the activity. There is no other. And in that acknowledgement, the frantic search ends, and a harmonious unfolding begins. The personal will surrenders to the divine choreography of its own being, and every movement then becomes a grace. The natural consequence of this recognition is not a state of passive trance, but the cultivation of a specific practical art, the practice of inner stillness. This is not an escape from the world. It is the decisive movement of returning to the only point of power you have ever truly had, the very source from which the world arises. If consciousness is the only activity, then to still the surface turmoil of that consciousness is not to cease activity, but to align with its deepest, most harmonious frequency. It is to become like the eye of a hurricane, a profound stillness at the center from which all power proceeds, around which the storms of appearance may rage, but which remains untouched and clear. This stillness is the workshop where the alchemy of perception occurs. You may protest, my life demands action, decisions, constant motion. Stillness is a luxury I cannot afford. This is the great deception of the world of effects. It shouts that you must move faster, think quicker, do more. But from where does that frantic motion spring? From a consciousness that believes itself to be a separate fragment fighting for survival. That very motion perpetuates the sense of separation and lack. The practice of inner stillness is the radical act of stopping, not in body necessarily, but in spirit. It is the conscious withdrawal of your identity from the churning of thought and reaction to anchor it in the silent witness that observes the churning. This is not doing nothing. It is the most potent form of doing, for it changes the doer. Let this be practical, immediate. You are about to enter a stressful meeting. The body is tense. The mind rehearses arguments, defends positions, anticipates attacks. This is the storm. The practice of inner stillness is not to blank your mind, but to find, right in the midst of this preparation for battle, a point of observation. Feel the tension in the shoulders. Observe it as a sensation appearing in awareness, not as your tension. Hear the frantic thoughts. Listen to them as sounds in the mind, not as your truth. This simple act of observation creates a space, a stillness, between the core of your being and the reactive apparatus of personhood. You may still walk into that meeting, but you walk in from this space. The words you speak will then have a different quality. They may carry the clarity of that stillness, and in doing so, they will not fuel the conflict, but may disarm it. The meeting becomes an event happening within your stillness, not something you are lost inside of. Consider the endless planning for the future, the mental rehearsal of tomorrow's tasks, next year's goals. This is a pervasive form of noise. The practice here is to, for a moment, let the future completely go, not as irresponsibility, but as supreme trust. Bring the attention entirely into the sensation of this breath, the weight of the body in the chair, the quality of light in the room. For 60 seconds, let there be no past, no future, only this timeless point of awareness. In that minute of gathered stillness, you are not planning your life, you are being life. From that point of being, action will later arise that is informed by wholeness, not by the anxiety of lack. The to-do list may get done, but it will be done by you, not driven by a frantic ghost. This practice finds its most profound application in the face of pain, physical or emotional. The instinct is to contract, to resist, to scream, no, inwardly, to tense every muscle against the experience. This resistance is the activity of the personal self asserting its nightmare of separation. The practice of stillness is to do the counter-intuitive, to soften, to allow, to create a space of silent observation around the pain. Do not say, "This is my pain." Instead, investigate, what is this sensation, directly known without the story? In that allowing, a separation occurs. The pure, aware stillness is discovered to be distinct from the sensation it contains. The pain may remain, but your identity is no longer fused with it. You are the vast sky holding a storm cloud. You are not the cloud. This is liberation, and it happens not when the pain leaves, but when you discover you are not the pain. The ultimate purpose of this practiced stillness is to erode, moment by moment, the illusion of the separate controller. You sit to be still, and the mind rebels with 1,000 thoughts. You observe them. Who is observing? Not the thinker, for the thinker is the thought being observed. This is the revelation. The you that seeks stillness is itself an object in consciousness. The true stillness is the subject, the aware space itself. As you practice, you are not a person achieving stillness. You are stillness discovering it has been temporarily pretending to be a person. The practice then becomes not a discipline you perform, but a remembering you allow. It is the conscious homecoming to the silent, potent source that you are, from which the entire panorama of your life, its challenges, its joys, its apparent victories and defeats, is being projected. From this center, nothing is missing, nothing is needed, and all action becomes a graceful, spontaneous expression of the infinite fulfilling itself in finite form. You move, but you are moved. You speak, but the words are given. You live, but it is life living itself as you, in a perfect, unhurried, and completely intelligent unfoldment. This final realization is not a conclusion, but a continuous beginning. It is the living, breathing state that flowers from the ashes of practiced stillness, living from oneness, not separation. The shift is total. It is no longer a theory to be understood, but the very air you breathe, the ground upon which every experience now rests. You have ceased trying to achieve unity with life. You are discovering in each moment that you are the unity in which all of life appears. The sense of a private, isolated self navigating an external universe dissolves, and what remains is a single, seamless flow of experiencing. You are not in the world is in you, the one conscious I am. To live from this is to end the civil war within. Consider the most common human experience, judgment. You see a stranger, a colleague, a political figure, and you feel that immediate inner contraction of approval or disdain. The old life lived from separation takes the judgment as real and solid. It confirms you as here and them as there, different other. But from the felt sense of oneness, judgment becomes a fascinating signal of forgetfulness. That person you disdain is an appearance within your own consciousness. The trait you condemn is, in some form, a disowned fragment of your own total being, projected outward for you to see. This does not mean becoming passive or agreeing with harmful behavior. It means your response now comes from a deeper place. You may still act. Set a boundary, speak a truth, but you do so from the understanding that you are addressing an activity within the one mind, not fighting an enemy outside yourself. The action is clean, clear, and free of the poison of hatred, because you are not protecting a fragile self from an other. You are the wholeness, adjusting its expression. Apply this to your sense of lack. You desire more money, a better home, a different relationship. From separation, this desire is a hungry void seeking fulfillment from the world. It is the beggar's bowl. Living from oneness, you feel the desire arise, but you immediately feel the space in which it arises. You ask not, how can I get that? But in whom does this desire appear? You trace it back to the silent, abundant I am that you are. You discover that the yearning for abundance is a whisper from your own infinite nature, reminding you of its truth. You then act not from the anxiety of the beggar, but from the knowing of the king. You might make the same phone call, pursue the same opportunity, but you do so from a consciousness of bringing your wholeness to the situation, not of seeking wholeness from it. The universe, being a mirror, has no choice but to reflect back the substance of that consciousness in form. This transforms suffering. A loss occurs, the end of a job, the passing of a loved one. The pain is deep, real, human. The separate self drowns in it, narrates a story of permanent tragedy, of a unique me, being punished or abandoned. Living from oneness, the pain is fully felt, but it is not personal. It is the one conscious life experiencing a contraction within itself, a folding in of a form so that new forms may emerge. You grieve, but you are also the awareness that holds the grief vast enough to contain it without being destroyed. You feel the connection not as something that has been severed, but as something that has changed its appearance. The love you felt for the one who passed is seen not as a transaction between two separate beings that has ended, but as the very substance of your own being, which is eternal and now flowing freely without that particular attachment. The loss becomes a brutal, gracious lesson in the impermanence of form and the permanence of the love that you are. Your daily routine becomes a sacred liturgy. Washing dishes. You are not a person performing a tedious chore. You are the conscious presence, aware of the feel of warm water, the sound of clinking ceramics. The activity happens within you. Driving in traffic, you are not an isolated ego trapped in a metal box, competing with other boxes. You are the aware space in which the entire panorama of movement, light, and sound is unfolding. The irritation may arise, but it is a cloud in your sky, not the sky itself. You are the openness that contains the journey, not the cramped driver on the journey. This is the end of seeking. You are no longer trying to get somewhere else, to become someone else, to get the universe to listen. You have realized you are the universe listening to itself. Every encounter is a meeting of the one with itself. Every challenge is an opportunity for the one to know its own resilience. Every joy is the one celebrating its own existence. There is no private salvation to attain. There is only this staggering, simple, ever-present fact, I am. And in that I am, everything is included. Nothing is excluded, and all that appears is the infinite playing at being finite. To live from this is to be done with the nightmare of separation. It is to walk through the world as a waking dreamer, engaged fully in the dream, but knowing yourself to be the dreamer, utterly free, utterly at peace, and utterly at home in the only place there has ever been here, now as this. You are about to be told something you will not believe, something that contradicts everything you have ever been taught about prayer, about desire, and about how good comes into your life. You have been laboring under a great illusion, striving and pleading with a power you believe to be outside of yourself. Tonight, that ends. I am going to ask you to do something for just one night. Not a ritual of begging, but an act of profound spiritual surrender. This is not about influencing the outer world. It is about a radical inner shift that allows the outer to conform. The world you see is but a shadow cast by the light of your own consciousness. Change the light, and the shadow must change. What I will share with you is not a method, but a principle. Not a request to God, but a realization of God. This is the sacred transition from being a seeker to being the embodiment of the sought. You will cease being a beggar at the door, and remember, you are the master of the house. If you are ready to lay down the burden of personal will, to for just one night engage in this conscious union, then what you have longed for can find its place in you by morning. Stay with this. Listen deeply, not with your intellect, but with your inner ear. This is your individual appointment with the infinite. Let this listening be your first act of commitment. Then let your subscription to this channel be a sacred sign, an outer symbol of your inner agreement to walk this path. And in the comments below, speak the number 7, the number of spiritual fulfillment, to bear witness that you have chosen to move from the world of effect to the realm of cause. You have spent a lifetime in mental argument, have you not? A ceaseless, internal debate between hope and fear, between what you desire and what you currently see before you. This is the great labor, the exhausting effort of the mind that believes it must figure it all out, plan every step, and wrestle circumstances into submission. You think of your goal, and immediately the mind presents a list of obstacles. The finances that are not there, the people who stand in your way, the time that has already been lost. And so you strive outwardly, you push and you force, you try to manipulate conditions and people, you send out resumes into the void, you plead in prayer to a distant God, you affirm and visualize with a sense of desperation clinging to each thought. This is what we are instructed to cease. Not the legitimate action, but the frantic, fear-based striving that springs from a belief in separation. It is the consciousness of lack, aggressively trying to get. It is the very activity that proclaims, I do not have, therefore I must struggle to obtain. Consider the simple act of planting a seed in the earth. Does the gardener dig it up each morning to check on its progress, to worry over its form, to beg it to grow? No. He plants it in faith, knowing the law of life is within the seed itself. His labor was in the preparation of the soil, but now he must cease that labor and trust the process. Your mental argument is that constant digging up of the seed. You are so busy examining the bare ground of your current circumstances, arguing with its barren appearance, that you never allow the law within the seed to operate. You are trying to do the growing yourself through sheer mental force. This is an impossibility. To cease mental argument is to lay down the burden of being the architect, the builder, and the laborer of your own life. It is to step back from the constant commentary, the planning, the rehearsing of conversations, the anticipation of problems. When a thought of lack or fear arises, a thought about that bill, that health concern, that relationship, you do not engage it in debate. You do not try to fight it with a positive thought. That is merely more argument. You recognize it for what it is, a shadow on the wall, cast by the flickering light of your own misdirected belief. You see it, and you let it pass. You withdraw the fuel of your attention. You are not ignoring the circumstance. You are ignoring the false sense of power the circumstance claims to have over your inner peace. This is the first, most critical step, because it creates the inner space, the quiet, fertile soil, for something entirely new to emerge. Until this noise ceases, you cannot hear the gentle, constant hum of your own being. You are like a man in a crowded, shouting marketplace, trying to hear a distant melody. He must first step away from the crowd. Your marketplace is your own thinking. The goal tonight is not to change your thinking, but to step back from it, to observe it without becoming entangled in its drama. Think of a problem that weighs on you now. Feel how the mind instantly leaps to define it, to resent it, to solve it. Feel the tension that creates in the body. Now, imagine, just for this one night, declaring a moratorium on that entire internal process. You are not solving the problem tonight. You are not even thinking about the problem tonight. You are instead turning your attention to something infinitely more present, more real. You are turning from the shadow, play on the wall, to the source of the light itself. This is not passive. It is the most active thing you can do, for it is the act of redirecting the very power of your consciousness from the effect to the cause. You are ceasing to be a reactor to the world and becoming a beholder of the infinite possibility that animates the world. The moment you truly cease that mental argument, a profound silence descends. In that silence, nothing is lacking, nothing is in danger. In that silence, you are already whole, already complete, and from that wholeness, all harmonious form must spring. The outer striving stops, because the inner war has ended. You have come home, and from this place of peace, all action you take tomorrow will be inspired, natural, and effective, no longer born of panic, but flowing from a deep inner certainty. This is the foundation upon which the entire night's practice rests. Without this conscious cessation, We merely rearrange the furniture in a burning house. With it, we step out of the house of limitation entirely and stand under the open sky of spiritual freedom. This silence you have entered, this conscious cessation of mental argument, is not an empty void. It is a living presence, a field of pure awareness waiting to be recognized. This is what we mean by entering the silence of inner prayer. It is not the prayer of words, of petitions sent out into the night. It is the prayer of listening, of humble attention, of becoming so still that you can hear the hum of your own being, which is the very activity of the infinite. You are not going somewhere to find this silence. You are peeling back the layers of noise that have obscured it. The thinker must become quiet so that the knowing can be revealed. Imagine standing before a still, deep pond at twilight. The surface is agitated by the wind, rippled and broken, reflecting nothing but confusion. This is the ordinary state of the mind engaged with the world, reacting, churning, distorting. To enter the silence is to wait for the wind to cease. Gradually, the ripples subside. The surface becomes like glass, and now, for the first time, the pond can perfectly reflect the moon and the stars above. The moon was always there. The stars were always present, but the disturbed surface could not register their reality. Your consciousness is that pond. The peace, the wisdom, the guidance you seek are like those stars, ever present, eternal. But your mental agitation has made them seem absent. Inner prayer is the patient, intentional allowing of the surface to grow calm so that the heavens can be seen reflected in you. In your daily life, you experience flickers of this. It is that sudden, unexpected moment of peace in the shower, where for no reason, all worry lifts. It is that split, second upon waking, before the world rushes in, when you exist in pure, unidentified being. It is the absorption you feel when watching a sunset so magnificent it silences your internal dialogue. These are not accidents. They are glimpses of your natural state. The practice tonight is to move from accidental glimpse to conscious dwelling. You are not creating a new state. You are returning to your native homeland. So how, practically, do you enter this silence? You begin by settling the body, perhaps sitting comfortably, and you turn your attention inward. You are not fighting thoughts. That would be more noise. Instead, you become the observer of the traffic on the mental road. You watch the thoughts go by. The memory of the day's slight, the list for tomorrow, the replay of an old conversation, and you simply do not get on the bus with any of them. You see the thought about the unpaid bill, and you acknowledge. There is a thought about a bill, and you let it continue down the road without you. You do not engage it, analyze it, or fear it. You withdraw the energy of your identity from it. This act of gentle observation is the wind ceasing. At first, the traffic may seem busier than ever, precisely because you are now noticing it. But persist without judgment. Then, shift your attention from the content of the mind to the context. Feel the awareness itself that is doing the noticing. Feel the space in which the thoughts appear. That space is silent, vast and untouched by the passing thoughts. Rest your attention there. You might focus on the simple feeling of being alive, the sensation of breath entering and leaving without any effort on your part, not controlling the breath, but feeling the miracle of it. This is not a breathing exercise. It is using the breath as an anchor to the present moment, to the alive silence that underpins everything. Or you might silently, gently, turn a word of significance over in the mind, like presence, or one, not as a chant, but as a soft pointer, a feather touch to remind you of the direction you are facing inward toward the source. This is where the magic, the sacred alchemy, truly begins. In this cultivated silence, you are not a person praying to God. You are individual consciousness consciously feeling its unity with the all. You are the drop of water aware of being the ocean. In this atmosphere, every thought is imbued with a creative power that frantic, fearful thinking could never possess. You are no longer broadcasting on a cluttered, static-filled frequency. You have tuned your entire being to a clear, pure channel. In this silence, you are not asking for anything. You are abiding in the fullness of everything. You are, in the most profound sense, at home. And from this home, all things are possible because you are no longer seeing from the perspective of the problem, but from the perspective of the limitless solution that is your own divine nature. This inner prayer is the gateway. It prepares the soil so perfectly that the seed, when it is placed, needs only to be left alone to fulfill its own divine mandate. Now, from that profound and living silence, a subtle but critical shift must occur. You have stepped out of the marketplace of thought and into the temple of your own awareness. Here, in this clarified space, you may feel the old forms of your desires rise again, the specific image of the perfect job, the exact dollar amount needed, the precise outcome for a relationship. This is the moment of true spiritual discernment. This is where you are instructed to release the specific form of your desire. This feels like a paradox, does it not? To want something, yet to let go of what it looks like. But understand this. Clinging to the form is the final anchor keeping you in the realm of personal will and limitation. It is the last vestige of the belief that you, as a separate self, know the one and only correct path to your fulfillment. You are, in essence, telling the infinite exactly how it must appear. This is not faith. It is spiritual dictatorship. Consider the child who aches for a parent's love. The child may have a specific form in mind, a hug at a certain time, words spoken in a particular way. If the parent expresses love through a patient lesson, a quiet act of care, or a gift of time, the child, fixated on the expected form, may completely miss the love being given. The child's predetermined picture blocks the actual, and often better, manifestation of the very thing desired, the feeling of being loved. Your desire is not for the specific car, the specific person, or the specific sum of money. These are merely forms your consciousness has grasped at to represent a deeper, formless need, the need for freedom, for companionship, for security, for expression, for peace. The desire is spiritual at its core. It is a movement of your being toward a greater experience of its own completeness. By clutching the form, you confuse the symbol for the substance. In your daily life, you have likely experienced the misery of this fixation. You wanted a particular promotion only to be denied it, and in your heartbreak, you failed to see how that closed door led you to start your own business, which became a far greater expression of your talents. You longed for a specific person to return your affection, blind to the new, more harmonious relationship entering your life from an unexpected direction. Your vision was so narrowed by the form, you demanded that you could not perceive the greater good already assembling itself on your behalf. The universe operates with a wisdom far exceeding your personal memory and foresight. It sees the interconnectedness of all events. It knows what needs to fall away and what needs to align for a harmony that benefits not just you, but the entire tapestry of life you are part of. So tonight, in the silence, you practice this sacred release. You take the deep, formless feeling behind your want, the feeling of financial freedom, of vibrant health, of creative joy, of loving companionship, and you acknowledge it. You honor that stirring within you as a divine impulse, a movement of the whole expressing itself as your individual longing. Then, you consciously disentangle that pure feeling from the limited picture you have painted around it. You say, in effect, I rest in this feeling of wholeness and freedom. I release my need to define how this wholeness must look. I trust the infinite intelligence that gave me this desire to fulfill it in the way that serves the highest harmony. This is not resignation. It is the highest form of co-creation. It is moving from being the anxious painter, desperately trying to control every brushstroke on the canvas, to being the canvas itself, willingly receiving the masterpiece. You are making room. You are declaring your openness. You are shifting your identity from the beggar who wants a specific coin to the beloved child who knows the entire household is theirs. When you release the form, you are not giving up the substance of your good. You are giving up your limitation of it. You are trading the seed for the forest. You are trading the single note for the entire symphony. Feel the liberation in this. All the anxiety about the how, the when, and the through whom simply melts. The burden is lifted from your shoulders. Your only work is to abide in the feeling of the fulfilled state, the peace of freedom, the vitality of health, without scripting the movie. This opens a channel so wide and clear that the intelligence of the universe can flow through unobstructed, often in ways so ingenious and perfect they will leave you in awe. It may bring the exact form you imagined, but now it will come as a gift, not as a prize you wrestled from life. More often, it will bring something better, something you could not have conceived because your vision was bound by your past. By releasing the form, you invite a miracle. You step out of the way and allow the infinite, I am, that you are to express itself in, through, and as your experience, in the perfection of its own design. This is the point where personal hope becomes spiritual certainty. Abiding in the conscious oneness of being is the natural state that follows the great release. Having let go of the specific form, you are no longer a seeker looking for something outside yourself. You are no longer a separate I in a silent room hoping to connect with a distant God. You are now abiding in the realized truth that the silence, the awareness, the very presence you are feeling is itself the divine reality. You and it are not two. The ocean is not separate from the wave. The wave is the ocean in expression. Your individual awareness is not separate from infinite awareness. It is a localized point of its total activity. To abide here is to rest in this as your fundamental, unshakable identity. It is to consciously be what you have always been, but forgotten, the very substance of life itself, individualized. This is not a mystical abstraction reserved for mountaintops. You have touched the edges of this feeling in moments of pure, unself-conscious flow. It is the athlete in the zone where the sense of a separate runner vanishes and there is only the running, a perfect unity of action and being. It is the musician lost in the music, where the fingers on the instrument move not from separate calculation, but from a deep, inner knowing that is one with the melody. It is the artist whose hand seems guided by a vision that flows through them. In those moments, the anxious, calculating self is absent, and what remains is a unified field of intelligent action. That is a glimpse of abiding in the oneness of being. The difference tonight is that you are not achieving it through an external activity. You are consciously choosing to sit in the heart of that unity as the source of all activity. So how do you abide? You do not strive to reach it, for you are already there. You simply notice what is already true. From the silence, you begin to feel not just an absence of noise, but a presence, a palpable, living reality. Feel the aliveness in your hands. That aliveness is not personal. It is the same intelligence that beats your heart, that digests your food, that grows a tree from a seed. It is the one life living as you. Your awareness of this aliveness is that life being aware of itself. Rest in that recognition. Let your sense of self expand from the small, biographical, the one with a name and a history of problems, to this larger, animating I am. This I am has no problems. It is pure potency, pure being, pure peace. It is the canvas upon which the picture of your life is painted. In this abiding, there is a profound shift in responsibility. The separate you, the manager of your life, has abdicated the throne. You are no longer trying to make things happen. You are allowing the one life to live you, to express as you, to unfold your experience from its own infinite perfection. Think of yourself as a window. For most of your life, you have been a window covered in mud and grime, struggling to see the light, trying to polish yourself from the outside. In the silence, you began to clean the grime. In releasing the form, you stopped trying to paint a specific picture on the glass. Now, in abiding, you simply become clean, clear glass. You do nothing but let the light, the one being, shine through you unobstructed. Your only job is to remain clear, to not cover yourself again with the mud of fearful thoughts or personal demands. This is an active passivity. It is a vigilant resting. Thoughts will come, memories, snippets of planning, echoes of old worries. But now, from this abiding place, you see them not as commands to obey, but as clouds passing through the vast sky of your true nature. You do not fight them. You do not follow them. You simply acknowledge that is a thought. And you return your attention to the feeling of being the sky itself, spacious, silent, and unchanging. You feel yourself as the witness, the container, the very substance in which all appearances arise and subside. You abide as the ocean, not as the tossing wave. Here, in this conscious oneness, desire transforms. It is no longer a hunger from a place of lack. It becomes a gentle, magnetic power of agreement. As you abide in the feeling of wholeness, you are in a state of perfect resonance with the wholeness that is the universe. You are a tuning fork vibrating at the frequency of fulfillment itself. And the universal law is that like attracts like. By being peace, you attract circumstances that resonate with peace. By being the consciousness of abundance, you become a magnet for ideas, opportunities, and resources that express abundance. You are not attracting things to you. You are discovering them within you as you appearing in your experience. You are the center from which all harmony radiates, and by abiding consciously in that center, the entire universe must rearrange itself to reflect that harmony back to you. This abiding is the most powerful creative act there is, for it aligns your individual expression with the infinite creative principle. You are not doing, you are being, and from that being, all doing flows effortlessly, perfectly, and on time. From this place of conscious abiding, from this rock, solid identity as the clear, open window for the infinite, a profound allowance takes place. This is not an allowance born of hope, but of knowing. You have shifted states. You are no longer in the state of seeking, but in the state of being the very thing you sought. And from this state, fulfillment can only unfold from within. It cannot come from outside, for you have realized there is no true outside. The world of effects you see is the out picturing, the projection of the inner state of consciousness. When you abide as wholeness, the projection must change to reflect its source. To allow fulfillment to unfold from within is to understand this spiritual law so completely that you release every last shred of anxiety about the process. You become a calm, expectant witness to the intelligence of your own being arranging the perfect outer symphony. Think of a sunflower in a field. It does not strain to reach the sun. It does not fret over the clouds of yesterday or worry if the sun will rise tomorrow. It is organically, naturally oriented toward the light. Its entire structure, the heliotropic nature of its stem, the broad face of its bloom, is designed to receive. And because it is in a state of perfect receptivity, aligned with the source of its life, the sun pours its energy into the plant, and the plant grows, fulfills its purpose, and produces its seeds. The sunflower allows its fulfillment to unfold from the law of its own nature in relationship with the sun. You are that sunflower. The sun is the infinite I am. Your alignment in the silence, your release of form, your abiding in oneness. This is you turning your face fully toward the light. Now, you must simply allow the light to do what light does illuminate, nourish, and cause growth in perfect accordance with its own nature. In your practical affairs, this allowance means the complete cessation of checking. It means you will not, upon rising tomorrow, rush to the window to see if your desired manifestation has arrived on the lawn like the morning paper. That very act of checking is a betrayal of the state you cultivated. It is a reversion to the old consciousness of lack and separation. It proclaims, I am here, and my good is out there, and I must see if it has come. That single thought, that impulse to check, can shatter the clear glass you have become. It reintroduces the very duality the entire night's work was designed to dissolve. Instead, you move through your morning with the quiet, internal knowing of the sun's presence, even on a cloudy day. You know the light is there because you are aligned with it. Your actions are not taken to force an outcome, but are inspired from this inner alignment. You answer the phone, you open the email, you go about your routine, not as a desperate seeker, but as the embodiment of the fulfillment you have allowed. This is where faith becomes substance. It is not faith in an event, but faith in your own realized being. You have felt the reality of the one life as your life. That feeling is the substance. The outer form that will match this feeling is as inevitable as an apple forming from an apple blossom. The blossom does not worry about becoming the apple. It simply is the blossom expressing the law of the tree. You have become the blossom of your desire by embodying its spiritual essence, freedom, love, peace. Now, you let the law of your being produce the fruit. Your only task is to protect the state. This means vigilant stewardship of your inner atmosphere. If a thought of doubt arises, what if this doesn't work? You do not engage it in battle. You see it as a phantom, a shadow from the old, discarded state. You smile inwardly, and you gently return your attention to the feeling of the fulfilled state. You might remember the depth of the silence you knew, or the expansive sense of oneness. You recalibrate. You reaffirm not with words, but with feeling, I am that. This is not denial of the outer picture. It is allegiance to a higher truth. You are choosing to live from the cause, not from the effect. And as you do this, a subtle but unmistakable confidence arises. It is not the arrogance of personal will, but the humility of being a perfect instrument. You begin to notice small synchronicities. The right book catches your eye. A friend calls with unexpected information. An old obstacle suddenly dissolves without your effort. These are not the fulfillment itself, but the first gentle rustlings of the leaves indicating the river is near. They are evidence of the inner adjustment. They are the universe beginning to mirror your internal shift. Do not jump at them as proof. Simply acknowledge them as natural signs of harmony. Continue to abide, continue to allow. The greater unfoldment is proceeding according to a divine schedule you cannot possibly comprehend. Your absolute trust is the final ingredient. It is the catalyst that allows the invisible substance of your consciousness to coalesce into visible, tangible form in your world. By morning, you may not see the final form, but you will feel the tectonic shift within. And feeling that, you will know, with a certainty beyond all evidence of the senses, that the outer world has no choice but to follow. It is law. This, then, is the summation of the entire principle, the final, focused application that condenses the infinite into a single, transformative night. To practice this as a single night of surrender is to enact a spiritual experiment of the most profound order. It is not a test of God, but a test of your own willingness to live the truth you have glimpsed. This one night is a concentrated lifetime of spiritual practice. It is the microcosm of the macrocosm. You are taking the journey from the world of effect back to the cause, from the noise of the marketplace into the sanctuary of the soul. And you are doing it with the urgency and purity of a focused intention. Tonight is not about beginning a long, arduous path. It is about realizing that the entire path exists in this very moment, and you are choosing to walk its entire length in the concentrated space between sunset and sunrise. Think of it as a sacred vow of silence between you and the universe, but a silence more active than any speech. You are vowing, for this one period, to let the old man, the old woman, the one who struggles, doubts, and plans, retire. You are granting that weary identity a night off. In its place, you are stationing the conscious awareness of your true identity as the witness, the abider, the very expression of the one life. This is not passive. It is the most dynamic act of will you can perform, the will to surrender personal will. You are deciding that for these hours, you will not manage your life. You will let life live you. You will observe the mechanisms of thought and emotion, not as their master, but as the silent, loving space in which they temporarily arise. This concentrated practice breaks the hypnotic spell of years of habitual thinking. It creates a crack in the wall of separation so wide that the light of a new day can flood in. How, practically, do you structure this night? It begins with your intention as you read these words. You set it apart as holy. You commit. Then, as you move through your evening, whether you are preparing a meal, bathing, or resting in your chair, you carry this inner work with you. You are not withdrawn from the world, but you are anchored in a different dimension of it. When a thought about tomorrow's meeting arises, you do not follow its thread into worry or rehearsal. You gently note, that is a thought about tomorrow, and you return your attention to the feeling of presence right now, to the aliveness in your hands, to the silent awareness behind the eyes. You are not fighting the world. You are seeing it from a new citadel within. When you lie down to sleep, this is the most potent phase. The body's surrender to sleep is the perfect physical analog for the spiritual surrender you are practicing. As the body lets go, You consciously let go of the mental and emotional grip on your life. You might use the quiet, sinking feeling of drowsiness as a trigger. Feel yourself sinking not just into the mattress, but into the boundless ocean of your own being. You are not a person going to sleep. You are consciousness preparing to rest in its source. If specific desires or fears flicker in the mind, you do not resist them. You see them as you would see images on a screen as you drift off in a cinema. They have no power. You are the awareness watching the screen. You fall asleep in that awareness. This is the supreme act of trust. To relinquish control at the very threshold of the unknown, not with trepidation, but with the certainty that you are entrusting yourself to yourself. And what of the morning? You will awaken. And the first moment, that precious sliver of time between sleep and the world, is critical. Do not let the old mental machinery engage. Before you remember your name, your problems, or your plans, remember what you are. Feel again the expanse. Touch that silence. For a few conscious breaths, be the abider. Then, as you rise, carry that atmosphere with you like a gentle fragrance. You are not looking for proof. You are being the proof. Your actions will be guided, not forced. Your words may be wiser. Your reactions will be calmer. You will move through your day not as a beggar, but as a king in disguise, knowing your kingdom is within and therefore all around you. The manifestations, the healed condition, the new opportunity, the resolved conflict, are the inevitable adjustments of the outer to the inner. They may come with startling speed, or they may unfold with a grace that reveals a perfection you could not have engineered. Your single night of surrender has recalibrated your entire being to its native frequency. You have, for one night, stopped interfering with the signal. And now, the music of the spheres can play through you, clear and undistorted. This practice is not a one-time event, but a doorway. Once you have passed through, you can never fully believe in the old world of separation again. You have remembered, and in that remembering, you have given the universe permission to reflect your remembrance back to you in every detail of a life made new